Nutrition communication is a very important aspect that is beneficial to all those courses I have mentioned. And I appreciate everyone who has stand up for this class. Last time we talked of nutrition education, and this course unit you are covering is nutrition education, communication, and counseling. So we want to understand all the aspects of those keywords in this course unit: nutrition education, nutrition communication, and nutrition counseling. So far we have covered nutrition counseling. We've also covered nutrition education, and now we are going to look at nutrition communication. All these three words go together. You cannot do nutrition education without communication, and you cannot carry out counseling without communication. So all this is part of communication. Nutrition communication basically refers to the transmission of information from the sender through a selected medium or channel to a receiver, overcoming barriers that affect its pace. That is generally the meaning of the word communication. In communication, you have to make sure you understand, you listen, and act. Those three words help you to be able to communicate effectively. What are the objectives of nutrition communication? The objectives of nutrition communication are similar to the ones of nutrition education that we talked about. Basically, we also want to make sure that we change people's attitudes about something. Particularly in nutrition, of course, you want to change the dietary habits of an individual, and so that the person can have healthier food choices. You also want to inform, educate, and motivate whoever you're communicating to. You want to influence their social norms and also provide reassurance and support for people who are in need. For example, if we are looking at the aspect of nutrition, we shall have cases of undernutrition and overnutrition. And for each of those, you have to make sure that you find solutions. So as you communicate, you're trying to reassure your clients and support them in their times of need. You also want to support the training of the health staffs of public agencies. Nutrition communication helps us to support the training of the health staffs of public agencies so that they are able to also carry out this nutrition education and communication to all the target groups that they reach. Nutrition communication also helps to reinforce positive behaviors, and it helps to create a supportive social climate for change. It also helps to create sensitivity and support among leaders and increase risk perception. So all these aspects are very important in nutrition communication. As you conduct your communication and education, these are the basic aspects that you have to look at. Let's basically look at some of the characteristics of effective nutrition communication. For nutrition communication to be very effective, you have to make sure that it is purposeful. What is the purpose for which you are tailoring your nutrition communication message? It should have a high impact. And if it is purposeful, it is going to help you to catalyze behavioral changes on a societal level, because you have a target group that you're looking at. And once this information reaches to this group, they'll be able to sensitize other groups on behavioral changes. And before you know it, the whole community has learned the aspects that you're trying to communicate to that society. It spurs the entire community into action. It prompts communities to live a healthy lifestyle by taking the necessary measures to prevent disease and to protect, maintain, and improve their own health, such as good nutrition and regular exercise. So as you're carrying out your nutrition communication, one of your major aims is to make sure that the people you're communicating to adopt a healthy lifestyle. How will they do this? By making sure that They take the necessary steps to prevent any diseases from occurring, and also to protect and improve their own health by having good nutrition practices and by carrying out regular physical exercise to keep fit. The second aspect is accuracy. As you're doing your nutrition communication, you have to make sure that you're accurate. You should give out valid content without errors of fact, interpretation, or judgment. And the other aspect is availability. And this depends on the audience that you're trying to reach. Via availability, we have to look at complexity versus simple. If it is a basic group that you're going to communicate to that does not understand complex concepts, then you have to make sure that you tailor your messages to a layman's language so that they're able to understand what you're trying to communicate. And also, if you are looking at intellectuals that are very knowledgeable, you have to make sure that you go deep and read and understand so that you're able to give accurate information that is not going to be challenging to you. The channel, interpersonal. You have to make sure that you channel this information through various networks. The social networks, right now we have the internet, the televisions, the radios, mass transit signs, prime time. How are you going to pass your communication? If, for example, you are tailoring your message to an international level, you are communicating to people in Uganda, in South Sudan, in Kenya, you have to make sure that you have a uniform time, for which if I'm in South Sudan and I log in, it will automatically allow. For example, we have Central Africa time in South Sudan, then we have the East Africa time in Uganda and Kenya. You have to schedule that session so that it rhymes with all these different time zones. And the fourth aspect is cultural competence. Cultural competence. When you're carrying out your nutrition communication, you have to make sure that the design, the implementation, and the evaluation process accounts for special issues for the selected population groups that you're looking at. For example, what is the ethnic group that you are reaching? What is the racial group that you are reaching? And what is the linguistic that they understand? What language does this community understand? If you are going to reach a community of maybe Central Equatorians that understand basic Arabic and they understand Bari language, you have to make sure that you tailor your message in the language that they understand and you respect their cultural norms and traditions. Education and also disability. Each special group of people, you reach to them in their own way. The design and implementation has to be specific to that specific group. Number 5, evidence-based. You have to make sure that your nutrition messages are evidence-based. Relevant scientific evidence that has undergone comprehensive review and rigorous analysis in order to formulate practice guidelines, performance measures, review the criteria and also technology assessments for telehealth applications. So you do not just go and give any message. You have to make sure that the message you're providing is evidence-based. In science, everything we speak is out of evidence. If it is not evidence, you have to make sure and you inform the group that it is theoretical, but it is liable to being tested for practical relevance. Number 6, you have to make sure that also you balance the benefits and the risks of potential actions and also recognize the different and valid perspectives on the issue. Do not be single-sided. One of the examples of this is, for example, if you're trying to communicate or market breast milk substitutes, these people who market breast milk substitutes are single-sided. You find that they're always giving you the benefits of using breast milk substitutes, but they do not look on the other side of the disadvantages. So the community and the group that is receiving this message is going to be misled. So in that case, if, for example, you're tailoring your message on breast milk substitute, you have to make sure you're open. Tell the people the benefits and the disadvantages of breast milk substitute so that they choose for themselves what is best. Number 7 is consistency. Make sure that the information you give is very consistent. The content has to remain internally consistent over time and with information from other sources. For example, this session I'm giving you right now, if somebody will log into this session or maybe go to the YouTube channel to watch this session 2 years after today, they are going to find that this content is still relevant to that time in the future. So your content has to be consistent. Number 8 is reach. Your content should be able to reach the largest possible number of people in the target population. That is how the session will be effective. Effective nutrition communication. There are some very important aspects that you have to look at when you're tailoring your communication. For example, you have to make sure that the source of the content you're giving is credible and up to date. That is reliability. And then repetition, continued or repeated over time. Do not offer this session once and end there. That is not going to be enough. Remember, this is behavior change. You have to continue these sessions over time. That's why health and nutrition education is carried out almost every day during triage in the health facilities and nutrition sites. This is because every day new groups of people come in that community. So they have to receive these messages daily. And even if someone has received it before, they could have received today, they do not go and implement. But when they receive this message repeatedly for a week or twice, you find that they start contemplating, the stages of change. They start contemplating about putting this into practice. Before you know it, they want to now practice. They come to you for guidance on how they will practice. So that's how you know that your session is effective. Timeliness. The communication has to be available when needed. And then understandability. The language and the format has to be in a way that the group you're reaching is able to understand. And multi-point. You have to make sure that you make it in a way that the people from different sectors are able to link together and give this education to all the groups. All right. Also, these aspects I found are very important for your personal development when you're carrying out nutrition communication or you're giving any kind of communication. Tips for good oral presentations. 1, you have to make sure you plan. You plan your topic, the key messages, the audience, the time, and the channel through which you're going to pass your communication. Preparation. Make sure that you have neat slides. You dress up very smartly. Project, if possible, so that people are able to look at what you're trying to provide for them. For example, the way we are right now, we are projecting the session. You're all able to see the slides. If there are some food items, for example, you're going to give a cooking demonstration, you have to make sure you look for those food items. They have to be available. Any other items needed, look for them. They have to all be available during the session. Number 3, you have to make sure you practice. Before you go for your presentation, practice it, rehearse it in your room. Get a colleague and try to rehearse to them as if you're giving to the targeted audience. And then they will give feedback to you on whether you are okay, you are going to give a very good session or not. If it is not good, you keep practicing so that by the time you go there, you have gained the confidence. Use feedback. That's what I'm talking about. And then number 4, performance. You have to make sure that you're audible enough. The session has to be interesting and not boring. The key contacts. Engage the audience when you're trying to communicate so that your session is interactive. We talked about interactive education in the previous session. Let the session not be drawn to only you. It should not be single-sided. It should be two-way. You give them the information, they give you feedback. They ask questions. You probe them so that they're able to give contributions. And then questions also. You have to make sure you ask questions so that you can get feedback and assess their understanding. So these are some of the very important tips that you're going to use for good oral presentation. Some of you are going to be managers, officers, you're going to be practicing in various sectors. And at one point, you're going to be required to give a presentation. These are the tips that are going to help you to make a very good presentation. Okay. Communication strategy. When you are going to communicate, you have to have a strategy or a technique that you're going to use. And the purpose of that strategy is to create a framework for delivering messages to change nutrition practices. When you're creating that framework, there are some key questions that you are going to ask yourself. What is the target audience? Who should receive this message? The message content. What is being communicated? For example, if I want to reach pregnant and lactating women, that is my target audience. So as I go for my session, I know that I'm going to talk to pregnant and lactating women. The content, what message do pregnant and lactating women need? I could choose to talk about good feeding during breastfeeding and breastfeeding and pregnancy. So this good feeding is tailored to both. What a pregnant woman eats is the same food that a lactating woman will be required to eat. Audience reflection, how to align the message with audience beliefs and attitudes. Before you go for the session, you have to find out, what do these pregnant and lactating women in this community believe in? Get their beliefs, get their attitudes, so that as you're giving your information, you tailor it according to what they believe. If there are some negative attitudes, you change them. Try to give them the correct message, and also applaud the good practices they are trying to implement in their communities. Media selection. What media will be effective to pass this communication? For example, if I'm at the hospital, what media am I going to use to give this communication? If it is not a very large group of people, I may just verbally speak to them. But if these people are spread out to different areas, then I might have to go extra mile to maybe pass this message to radio stations so that they are able to receive this communication wherever they are. The settings for communication. Where should the message be delivered? And the timing. When is the best time to communicate? So you have to make sure you look at all those aspects. Linking strategies to interventions. The communication strategy must align with the planned interventions, and this requires field investigation into the community knowledge, attitudes, and practices. We talked about this in the previous class, and I believe you now understand it well. As you carry out your nutrition education, communication, and counseling, you have to make sure that you have strategies on how you're going to evaluate your program. And what is the importance of evaluation? Evaluation helps you to engage beneficiaries and field workers in the process in order to enhance program effectiveness. How will you measure the success of your session? You have to make sure you have a well-defined objectives that allow for quantitative assessment of behavioral change. And understanding change, you have to identify the reasons for changes or the lack of change. Determine the effective communication aspects that are required for your sessions. So the goals and objectives. So as you carry out your communication and set your strategies, you have to make sure you have specific goals. For example, if your goal is to improve health and nutritional status of infants at risk of malnutrition, your objective there is going to be to increase the intake of energy-dense foods by 50% in identified at-risk infants within 2 years. So as you tailor your communication, it has to be continuous over a period of 2 years. And by the end of these 2 years, you have to make sure that you have reached at least 50% of these at-risk infants and their intake of energy-dense foods has increased. The outputs and the activities. You have to make sure that you conduct key performance indicators, conduct CAP studies, develop training materials, and provide training courses. Engage these mothers in practical training session in order to enhance information and infant nutrition practices. And what are the beneficiary groups? As you set your specific session, you have to make sure that you know the specific group you are reaching. The vulnerable groups, you have to identify those, for example, at risk. For example, the weaning age, children. Remember, our goal here is to improve the health and nutritional status of infants at risk of malnutrition. So the key group that is vulnerable here, these are the children that are of weaning age, children at least 1 year and above. The primary group here are mothers, the breastfeeding mothers. They are the target groups for behavior change. And the secondary group will be the intermediates, like the health workers and the teachers. These are going to help you also in your communication and education. And the tertiary group will be the influential community members and authorities, the elders in the communities, the husbands, the brothers and the sisters to these mothers, and then the grandmothers also. These are very important change agents in the community. The importance of cultural inputs. Cultural inputs help you to make sure that your messages resonate culturally. You have to avoid imposing wrong ideas on the communities. You might have to go to a community, and if you have not understood their culture, you're going to start talking things that are sensitive, culturally sensitive information. And this information may not be appeasing to this community, and this may turn against you. They might even beat you and chase you out of their community. So when you know the cultural inputs in that society, it's going to help you to avoid imposing wrong ideas on these communities. Adapting traditions. You have to incorporate culturally accepted practices into the new nutritional guidelines. Utilize the traditional knowledge and practices as a foundation for your communication. How will you design effective messages? One, message, media, and support. You have to make sure that you distinguish between these concepts. What is the message you're trying to pass? What is the media you're going to use to disseminate this information? And which support do you need? From which groups of people? You have to distinguish these concepts clearly so that you have clarity for each of them. Attention and comprehension. Ensure that the messages attract interest and are easily understood. Pre-testing. Make sure that you evaluate your message effectiveness through community engagement and feedback. That is how you're going to be able to test whether your strategies are effective or not. Media selection. The types of media you could choose are face-to-face or mass media. And then face-to-face communication. This requires interpersonal interactions that are very critical for reinforcing your messages from mass media. Let's look at some of the roles of the SAM workers in nutrition education, communication, and counseling. What is the role of agricultural extension workers? These extension workers have regular contact with farmers, and most of the farmers in our communities we find are women. And these workers are very vital for disseminating nutrition information because they go around also trying to teach the communities on how to carry out good agricultural practices. They promote varied diets to enhance nutritional security and also support agricultural productivity for improved community incomes. So as you carry out your communication, you have to make sure you involve these agricultural extension workers. Collaborative efforts in agriculture. The agriculture extension officers will have to partner with community health and nutrition officers and workers. And once these three groups of people come together, they'll have to provide guidance on crop selection and profitability. They have to carry out also guidance on seed propagation and distribution and assist with loans and productivity improvement. So you find that these agricultural workers are very, very important in helping us to tailor our messages to the various communities. Tailoring messages to farmers. When we are tailoring these messages to the farmers, you have to make sure that you develop technical messages for crop diversity and encourage cropping systems to maximize land use. Listen to the farmers' constraints to ensure that you're offering relevant nutritional messages. So before you give the message to the farmers, you have to also listen to the farmers. What are some of their constraints they are facing that are preventing them from carrying out good agricultural practices? Once they tell you their challenges, then you'll be able to tailor some solutions to these problems. The role of home economists. Home economists are very important in improving household food security, especially in the rural areas. Their role is to educate families on efficient resource use, cooking methods to preserve nutrition and nutrients, and then nutritional needs for different family members. Promoting nutritional gardens and small animal rearing. As you carry out your communication and education, you have to make sure you encourage home gardens also in order to prevent micronutrient deficiencies. Promote raising small animals and fish ponds for home consumption. Secure diverse food supplies for the various households. What is the reality of extension services, if you can ask ourselves? Because ideally, a full team of extension officers serve communities. This is the reality. This is the ideal concept. We want to make sure that there is a full team of extension officers that are serving the various communities. But in reality, you find that one agriculturalist will handle diverse issues. The same agricultural extension officer is going to be the one to talk about home gardening, is going to be the one to talk about seed propagation, is the same person that is going to talk about home economics. So you find that this person is going to become strained and may not be able to offer enough to the communities, compared to when we are having a full team of extension workers that are specialized in different sectors. So we have to make sure that we invest in training of field staff. This is very essential for us to create a full team that is going to be able to handle various diverse issues. Integrating nutrition into agricultural training. It's very important for agricultural professionals to have nutritional knowledge, because when they go into their communities, as they carry out their education on good agricultural practices, they are also encouraging the communities to have good feeding practices. And the training should include community development and nutrition, and ministries of agriculture and education should also promote this integration. This is how we are going to be able to integrate all these various aspects. A person doing a bachelor's of agriculture should be able to carry out or maybe should be able to have a course in nutrition, a short course. A person doing nursing, healthcare management, public health, all these people should be able to make sure that they have knowledge on nutrition. That is how we shall be able to integrate nutrition into agriculture. Nutrition and communication in Sahelian countries. The Food and Agriculture Organization's regional program for improved nutritional status emphasizes this. And there is a multi-sectoral team that works on communication campaigns. And they focus mainly on rural radio, audiovisual aids, and also community involvement. The health workers. The role of the health workers in nutrition education. Their key role is in making sure that they address maternal and childhood malnutrition. And it is important that they also learn to shift from disease treatment to nutrition promotion and emphasize local food recommendations and preparation methods. Communication specialists are also very important because they're the ones that help us to disseminate this information to the various communities. They also are very essential for crafting effective nutrition messages. And there is need for training in health and nutrition communication. A person that is doing a bachelor's or a diploma in mass communication should be able to get some training on health and nutrition communication. because they're the same people that are going to help us in carrying out this communication. Collaboration with health, agriculture, and education sectors. They have to make sure that they're in good communication with these various sectors so that they're able to tailor good messages. Advocacy and training for decision makers. The importance of nutrition knowledge for policymakers. We have to make sure that we emphasize that, and also the impact of policies on food access and nutrition. There is also need for nutrition advocacy in planning and decision making, so that we can have communication that is very effective. Themes for nutrition communication. Some of the important themes for nutrition communication include agricultural themes. Under agricultural themes, we could talk about household food cropping and purchasing patterns, consumption of nutritious foods from projects, home production of vegetables and protective foods, food storage and preparation techniques. All these are very important aspects that we can talk about. Health and child development themes. Here we focus on nutritional needs of vulnerable groups, the pregnant and lactating women, infants and children. You have to make sure you talk about achieving adequate diets with available foods, with special feeding practices during illnesses. Community engagement for dietary change. Under community engagement for dietary change, we have to make sure that we involve the community members in order to enhance dietary shifts. For example, if you are trying to create a recipe that is competent for micronutrient-rich foods, you have to create a supportive environment for behavioral change. Child health and child development themes. We have already talked about this. We also have community engagement for dietary change. This involves community members being active in enhancing dietary shifts. And then what is the role of media in nutrition communication? There are various forms of media that we can use for our communication. For example, televisions. This provides very strong impact, but it has limited access in rural areas, and it is very effective in urban settings. Videos. They are very highly effective and require skilled production and facilities. Printed press. These are effective for literature populations, but there are challenges with literacy and circulation. But if you make sure that you provide posters with images, so they can help to make sure that communication is effective with non-literate audiences. As you're trailering your messages, you have to make sure you combine radio campaigns with face-to-face outreaches, and this helps your communication to become more effective. Different media reinforce each other, increasing message reach and frequency. The timing and the context for messages. It's very important to time your concepts, and this is very critical for media effectiveness. The message should align with community activities, for example, market days, and you have to adapt the strategies based on local conditions and behaviors. Addressing urban nutrition challenges. Nutrition messages for urban communities will not be the same as those for rural communities, because there are a lot of differences between these two groups of people. So your nutrition messages for the urban communities should focus on transitioning to cash-oriented food systems, and also issues like hygiene, food safety, and access to affordable nutrition. So the effective media for this will be radio and television. But if you are looking at the rural communities, it may be more effective for you to use radio and also face-to-face interactions. And there are some few guidelines for effective nutrition communication. You have to make sure you conduct in-depth research for strategy development, focus on consumer preferences for campaign effectiveness, and also the community leaders are very important in promoting solutions. So you have to make sure that you involve them in your sessions. How about if you're conducting nutrition education in schools? Schools are very important platforms for reaching out nutrition messages. And one of the goals here is to make sure you develop knowledge and encourage healthy eating habits among children. So once you give this information, these children can be able to influence family dietary choices. If you give these messages, for example, to a child that is in P4, when they go home, they'll say, Mommy, they told us that we are supposed to eat this and this. What about my plate? That our plate should be able to have half fruits and vegetables, and then the other half should contain carbohydrates and proteins. So children are very important change agents when it comes to family dietary choices. And some of the practical approaches in schools will be nutrition education that is linked to practical activities like gardening and cooking. Involve parents to build a supportive environment. For example, child-to-child program encourages children as educators. Innovative approaches in teacher training. Some of these include Sierra Leone's Bunum Teachers Training College that focuses on community nutritional needs. Developing relevant curricula for primary school teaching. The curriculum should be able to include nutrition messages. And then community-centric school programs. The school programs that are tied to community activities will also help to enhance sustainability. For example, if you're carrying out school gardening programs supported by agriculture extension workers, these should also include nutrition messages. What are some of the long-term perspectives on nutrition communication? Education in schools lays the groundwork for future societal change. So one of the major areas for us to create effective change is schools. The training of change agents is very important, and this also will have important benefits in various aspects. And then finally, as you go back, I would like you to ponder on this. Write a half-page summary of the key barriers to and the opportunities for communicating actionable nutrition messages. Each of you go to the forum and post your answers within 1 week's time. That is the session we've had today. Thank you very much.